there. So I want to speak to those of you who may feel like you're disconnected, like whenever you go and pray to God, you get silence, or even for those of you that just want to learn more about how do I really create this conversational and consistent type of experience with God where I can hear Him in my life all the time. And I just want to tell you a little bit of my story and also just share like 3 hidden blocks that I think got in the way of me being able to really hear Him, sense Him in my life. It was interesting because I was praying about this and the thought came just about my view of God. And this is the first block, is that we see Jesus not as a friend, but as an authoritarian, a very critical principal, or a boss of some sorts. And I just grew up with Jesus being this very serious and reverent figure. You do not have a friendship with Jesus. You have a respect towards Jesus and towards God. And I mean, I agree. I do want to reverence God. I do want to have that sense of respect. But what I have found is that when I do have that level of respect, or at least the way in which I felt I was taught, was that with this respect comes this idea that Jesus is so perfect, so beyond our scope, that it actually makes it hard for me to connect with Him. And it's kind of like, if you were to imagine, this can be a parable of sorts, is imagine getting an invitation to a party. And this isn't your average party. This is a very fancy party. And the only reason why you could tell is, well, the invitation was really fancy. And then 2, when you looked at the address, it was to a mansion. And as you go to the mansion, and if you're anything like me, you're pulling up in a 2008 Toyota Sienna with a scratch on the side and over 200,000 miles driven on it. And if you pull up to a fancy mansion where everyone's driving a Tesla or a Lamborghini or something like that, you're going to feel pretty out of place. And I mean, let's just say that you're a bold person and you go into the party because maybe you're thinking, okay, I can do this. I can go into this place and I'm going to meet some people that will change my life. That because successful people go to big fancy parties like this. So you go in and you see people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Oprah Winfrey and all these really amazing people. And they're talking about technology and the government and really conversations that are high level. I just want you to imagine like how you might feel in that environment. And not only that, but everyone's wearing tuxedos and you might have a suit and tie or a white shirt and tie, but you still feel so out of place. It's kind of like that in the sense that if Jesus is so perfect and so far above me in every way, how is it possible that I can relate to that? How is it possible that I can actually experience the humanness that Jesus did live, that Jesus did come down in the flesh to have a human experience so that He could relate to us? Like that was purpose, and it's only magnified by the fact that He wept with Mary and Martha. He dined with sinners. Or we read in John chapter 21 where he cooks breakfast, he cooks some fish for His disciples who are out fishing once again. It's like He did these very human things. And I remember having this interview with this fellow who reminded me, and don't take this wrong, but But Jesus went to the bathroom. Jesus farted. He was so human. And when we start to engage with that, and I think that's a big reason why the Chosen series is so refreshing, because it actually gives Jesus this human perspective, someone that we can laugh with, someone that we can connect with, someone that we can actually walk with in life. And so when we forget this humanity, we can't relate to him. And that's the first block. The second one is kind of like it. And it's this idea that we were raised, and I'm not going to exclude anyone on the planet from this. I don't care how great your parents are. We were raised in a society and with parents that were conditionally loving. And in other words, when you do good, I treat you better. When you follow what I had tell you to do, I am more proud of you and I am more grateful for you. I mean, even with my own kids, if they talk back at me, if they don't listen to what I say, I am more apt to get frustrated. I am more apt to not speak kindly towards them. That's not unconditional love. And don't get me wrong in saying that I don't try and set boundaries and standards, and that I don't hold to some things, and that I'm not always just like, oh yeah, just be free, do whatever you want. And that's not what God's like either. He's not saying go be free, do whatever you want. But what he is saying is that if you do all those other things, if you go spend your entire life, your entire savings, your entire inheritance on riotous living, I am going to run to you and shower love upon you. And I'm not going to request that you be a servant. Instead, I'm going to reinstate you as my son. And I don't know if that rings a bell, but that's the prodigal son. That's the parable. Is that just as this son who has lost his inheritance is coming home and he's practicing what he's going to say to his father. He's going to say, I want to be your servant. I can just imagine him like rounding the bend, seeing his house and thinking, oh man, what am I doing? I should just turn right around. What am I thinking? So filled with shame. And because the father sees him and runs to him, he has no chance of escaping. He has no chance of escaping the father's love. And not only does he give him a new cloak, new shoes, and a ring to put on his finger, all symbolizing just his reinstatement as his son, he throws a party. It's like, we're going to celebrate the fact that you came back, because that's awesome. I'm just so glad that you exist, that you're alive. We don't experience that. I remember coaching and trying to help some people that I was coaching. I was like, I want you to experience what it's like to be delighted in. I want you to know that God delights in you. And for one woman, she said, I don't understand that. Like, my brain and body cannot even comprehend what it's like to be delighted in, because she never experienced it. And so I just have to think, how many of us, truly, even with great parents, great lives, all these things, how many of us have actually been delighted in? That when we're even with our friends, do our friends do they say things like, you know what, Tyson, I just like you. I just think that you are awesome. I enjoy your presence. My friends don't say that. They don't say those kinds of things. So if you are anything like me and you have like fairly normal friends and a normal life or whatever, you probably don't experience that much either. You don't experience that delight, that sense of, I'm just really glad to be with you. And when you don't experience unconditional love like that, and instead what your view of Jesus is, what your view of God is this performative, I will only love you if you meet the conditions, if you meet the rules, if you meet what I have asked you to do, then that's another form of disconnection. That creates this disconnect, and it creates an experience where you don't actually feel loved and can't even receive of his love. And to me, what ends up happening is that you don't receive his word for you. You don't receive guidance. You don't hear his voice. If we truly know God, then we will have eternal life. But the problem is we actually don't know God. We don't know that he's with us and that he's delighted in us, that he loves us beyond anything that we can imagine. And so if we go back to the parable of the posh party, the parable of the posh party is that if we go back to that party, it's not only that we are apprehensive of even being in that space. That's so great, so amazing. And that really is all for us. But we are muddy and we're missing a shoe. Our hair is disheveled. We look a mess. And from that place, we feel like we aren't even worthy of connecting with God because we haven't fulfilled all the commandments. We keep making mistakes. We keep doing the quote unquote wrong things. And at least for me, every time that I would do something wrong, I would just think that I was unworthy of his presence, as if Jesus would be disappointed and reject me and not want to be with me. And I forget in those moments of mistakes that Jesus went out to the sinners. Like he not only dined with them, he almost in a way sought them out. Like, I'm here to heal you. I don't want to move further away from you when you make a mistake. I want to come closer. And wouldn't a loving father want to reach out in tenderness and gentleness and kindness when their child is suffering? Even if they're doing bad things, even when they're making choices that aren't helpful. You wonder why in the parable of the prodigal son, the father was waiting, watching. I'd like to think that that's what I would do for my own children, but I'm not unconditionally loving. As much as I seek to be, as much as I would love to be, that's almost impossible for us as humans. And so the belief that God is this conditionally loving parent, that blocks us from hearing his voice. And the practice of receiving his love is really the practice that I like to help people do within the Receive Academy. This is just the free community that I have. And I just invite you to join it before I tell you this third block, mainly because this is a practice. You know, we've spent years, if you're anything like me, you've spent the past 30 years. If you're older, you've spent longer practicing a view of God that doesn't serve you. And it's not even your fault. It's just what you've learned from society, from church, from parents who are all conditionally loving. So it's okay that you experience this. It's just, okay, now that I know that, how do I practice a new view? And the Receive Academy, being in a community of people that are not there to judge each other, but are there as wounded sinners, all trying to connect with God in a deeper, more meaningful, and more intimate way, that's powerful. And that's what people have been experiencing, is that as we get together and as we listen, as we practice listening to a loving presence, we change. And it's natural and it's not forced. So if you want to be part of that, I'll have a link in the description that you can click on and you can come join us, and that'll be really fun. But here's the third block. The third block is not recognizing that Jesus is actually here, right now, present with you in your room. As you're listening to this, he's right there. We hear that. Sounds nice. But part of the reason why I never believed that truth, or at least never really practiced it and felt like it was important to practice, was because it was never taught to me. And then two is this idea that I was never taught to use my imagination. I was never taught to imagine Jesus Christ being in the room. I don't necessarily know why. I just don't think very many religions or faiths do teach that. The reason why I think it's powerful is I just want you to recognize that when I ask you to maybe reflect on a memory, let's say I say, okay, I want you to think of a time when you felt really loved, like a moment in time when you really just enjoyed being with other people. What comes to mind, or at least what comes to my mind, is those moments where I'm with my family, we're laughing, we're playing board game, or there was a time I was at this dance and my parents were a chaperone, and I just remember looking over at my mom and she was just smiling at me. But it was one of those smiles, and the energy of it was just like, that's my son, and I just love him so much. I just can't get enough of him. I'm just so glad to see him dancing and having so much fun. That was what I felt. She didn't say a word. She just had this smile and this glow about her. And I hold on to that memory because, and when I do think of that memory, what's happening? I'm reimagining that whole experience, and it's rekindling all that emotion. It's reinvigorating me. It's reminding me of the truth of what love actually feels like. And the thing is, I only have a handful of those moments that I actually really remember, that kind of, I'm so glad that you exist kind of feeling. And so if we naturally and instinctively, when we think of a memory in the past, and or even we imagine all sorts of things in the future, we are like expert movie producers in our brain. And if we can do that, why not use that same capacity to imagine the truth that Jesus Christ is always with us? When he told his disciples, I'm with you always, that he meant it. That we believe the scripture, that he's always with us. And when I do that, when I recognize that, okay, one, he's human. He understands me and wants to laugh with me. He's willing to sit down and just chill on the couch. He wants to play a video game with me. He wants to go on a walk with me. He wants to do normal human things with me. Just be with me. And the fact that he's present, like he's actually with me. And then I add to that he just delights in me, that he just likes being around me. When I add those three elements together versus the opposite of those things, I feel more connected, and I feel like I can actually receive more from him, that I can hear his voice, that we can actually be friends, like he says. So if you feel like that's not your experience, and to be fair, I actually just got off a call where I met with someone, and she said that she grew up in this just authoritative. She thought that Jesus was like this, critical school principal. And the thing is, there are tools, there are ways, there are means in which I can help you to access love, to practice seeing God in a new way. And the best way that I can do that for you right now is just inviting you to come into the Receive Academy. It's free. And there are courses in there that can start to unwind and unlearn the old way and to relearn a new way. And I hope that this video at least helped start that process. But for some of you, I know that you've had just horrible, hard experiences in your past. And, and this woman that I met, she was like beaten at school. Yeah, just crazy stuff. And not beaten in this and like pummeled. It's just beaten with a wooden spoon. It's like you got a lashing or a whipping, a spanking. But it's just like, when you go through that kind of experience of life, when you have those traumatic experiences, when your child has just been filled with, you are only good enough if you follow everything that I say. You're only good enough if you get straight A's. You're only good enough if you succeed in life. And if you're human, you fail a lot, then you're lost. It's like there's no coming back from that. And that's what we've learned. That's what we live. And that's our default. So we have to unlearn that. So I just hope that you'll take some time to connect with me. I want to connect with you. And you can come and chat with me. You can, I'll start a chat with you in the Receive Academy, and we can just chat about what you're experiencing, and maybe I can help you out. So hope to see you there, and we'll talk to you later.